Yeah, it's Mindset Café, we all got that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive thoughts.
The problem isn't that leadership is lonely. The problem is you haven't built the right rooms with the right peers. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy, Devin, and today's leadership, right? The part that nobody posts or nobody talks about. And here's the truth. Leadership doesn't just raise your impact, it shrinks your circle. It doesn't just raise your impact, it shrinks your circle, right? Leadership, it weighs heavy, right? And so most people don't know this, but that's the why when they get weird when it happens, right? They think something is wrong with them. And I just got to say, nothing's wrong with you, right? It's the structure that changed. So I'm going to try to make this simple. I'm going to try to, name a pattern for you in this. And I'm going to try to, give you maybe some rules or some ways to manage it, because loneliness is part of the job, right? Part of the job description. Isolation, though, is your choice. So let's dive in, right? Most people think that success brings more connections, right? More friends, more support, more I got you. And sometimes maybe at first, sure. But over time, it starts to flip. Because when you become the decision maker, people talk to you different, right? They don't really vent to you the same. They don't challenge you the same. They don't tell you the full truth the same as they used to. Not because they're bad or you're bad or anything of that nature, but it's because the relationship dynamic has changed. And if you don't understand that, you'll start chasing the old version of your life, of the old version of your circles. You'll start trying to be relatable and, try to keep everyone close to you, right? That's just a mistake. So if I could define like what this is, it's essentially like the loneliness curve, I like to say. And if I had to kind of define it for you, the loneliness curve, it goes something like this, right? The more responsibility you carry, the fewer people can relate to you and relate to what you're holding. That's it. More responsibility, fewer peers, more influence, more distance, more clarity, right? But more separation. Loneliness isn't a personality flaw in this scenario. It's a byproduct. If you lead, you're going to end up carrying the weight. If you carry the weight, fewer people can carry it with you or relate to you in what you're carrying. And pretty much that's the curve. So the next part is why does responsibility, kill maybe your outlets of, when you're able to explain some of the weight that you're carrying. And to make it simple, people depend on you now. You can't vent the same way, because venting down, to be honest, is stupid. If you're the owner of a business, you don't dump your fear on your team. If you do, here's what's going to happen. You vent, they absorb it, then they panic, and then they slow down, right? They gossip. And that makes the moves you end up making, or they make, dumb moves, right? Then you have to clean up the mess that you essentially created. So you stop, you start editing, you start holding back, not because you're fake or you think you're better than anyone else or anything like that, because you're responsible. And this is the part that leaders don't admit, right? It's not that you stop having emotions. You just start running out of safe places to essentially put them or share them. And that's where that loneliness starts to creep in. Not at the top of the mountain, but in real life. right? It's not just a little quote, little saying, you know, it's all of a sudden you might feel that loneliness on a random Tuesday, right? When something hits and you can't really talk about it to your own people, right? Then here's a little set of like rules essentially you could follow, right? Rule number one, make sure you don't vent down, right? You don't want to vent down to your team. You don't want to vent down to the people under you in any form or fashion, right? Build a place to vent, maybe sideways or even up, right? Hiring a coach, you know, find like-minded people that are also in your same position, right? So that way you can vent to them, you can, you know, get some advice from them, right? So rule number one, don't vent down, vent sideways or up. Sideways equals peers, you know, up equals either mentors, coaches, or advisors. And the reason again for that is just because your peers can handle it. They get it. They're going through it. Your mentors, they can handle it. You know, they've been there. Your team, they need clarity. They need direction, right? They need calm. They need certainty, right? They need to believe that you know what you're doing. So if you're thinking, but I want to be transparent, cool. But be transparent about the plan, not about your panic. Clarity makes you harder to relate to, I would say, right? To maybe the next piece, right? Clarity isolates. The clearer you are, the lonelier you're going to get. And honestly, here's why. When you see the path, you stop tolerating nonsense. Excuses start to feel a little bit weak. Indecision feels draining. Complaining just feels like a waste of time. And then you start to notice something. A lot of people essentially bond through complaining. And that's because they don't really want a solution. They want to have a shared emotional spiral. And you used to join in on it. You're human because you were in it too. And then you leveled up. And now you're like, okay, I get it, but what's the move? And they now look at you maybe like a robot or, you know, someone that doesn't understand anymore. And no, you just got clearer on a bigger picture. Clarity separates you from people who live in essentially a more blurred, unclear, like they don't see the whole game board, you know. And it's not confusion, I would say, but it's not your arrogance either, right? So I don't want you to think that, you know, because some people think that maybe, you know, you're leveling up and now you think you're better than everyone. It's not that, right? It's just growth. And so your influence on them and the direction of whatever the company or the team, right? It changes how people talk to you, right? And this part really matters. When your opinion starts to carry weight, people filter less honestly. More yes, more fake agreements. And why? Because conflict has a cost now, right? People don't want friction with the person who can say yes or no, even outside the business. Right? It's going to happen if you guys go out and about. Like for some reason, the roles don't get left. Right? Friends start saying, you know, whatever you think or whatever you want. You know, you decide. You know, and it sounds like respect, but maybe not always respect. Sometimes it's just fear. Sometimes it's avoidance, and sometimes it's them not wanting to be wrong around you or seem like they don't have the answer or understand what's going on. And there's a cost to that. You get less truth. Less truth equals worse decisions. So the higher you go, the more you must design a system around getting the truth. You don't hope for honesty. You have to build a system for it. So rule number 2, though, is you need truth, not necessarily applause. And why I say that is most people want to feel supported. But winners, they just want to be told the truth. They want to know what is going on. What needs to be changed, what needs to be improved. Because truth protects results. And applause just feels good in the moment. but it doesn't fix any problems. I don't need a good job or, you can do it or anything like that. Like that's awesome. But like, we need to solve this fucking problem. Right. So you need at least one person in your life or in your circle who will tell you, yo, that's a bad call. Or I think you're being emotional. I think you're avoiding the situation. You're just making excuses, and you need to be able to take it. No drama, no ego. And if you don't have that person, honestly, you're at risk of the downside of it, right? Going down, going backwards, because leadership with no trust becomes just illusion. And the quiet loss of reliability, there's another truth, right? And that is that you didn't outgrow people. Your role just changed. A lot of leaders feel guilty about this, and they think maybe am I abandoning them? Am I abandoning them, or am I abandoning my people or my peers or my friends? And honestly, no, right? Your lane changed. And in your new lane, your stakes changed. Your consequences changed. So your conversations also change, right? And in that, sometimes your tolerance changes and hopefully your focus changes. And some people won't come with you into that lane, and that's okay. Not because they hate you or they don't want to be like you or they think you, or any kind of way, but because they don't want the weight that you now bear, right? They want comfort. They want normal. They want easy. Leadership is not easy. Being a business owner is not easy. Being a parent is not easy. You don't stop fitting. So you stop trying tongue twisted. So you stop fitting right into your previous circle or to what your previous version of you was. And now you're wondering, like, am I changing? Am I becoming someone that I'm not? No, that's normal. Right. And so going into rule number 3 that I had for you guys was, stop asking your old circles to understand your new weight, right? Your new circle's weight. It may sound harsh, but it will save you, because here's what's going to happen if you don't. You keep explaining yourself. You keep trying to shrink yourself down to their level to make yourself relatable to them. And you keep trying to stay the same. And the whole time you're doing that, you're losing time. You're losing focus, right? You're losing standards. Look, you can still love the people and hang out with the people. You can still be loyal, but you can't demand that they understand a life that they're not living or that they choose not to live. That expectation will just mess you up. And leaders, I will say, as a leader, you will get less emotional support, right? This one is simple. People assume that you're fine because you look fine. You're calm, right? And whether your face shows it or not, that's what they just perceive. They understand that you handle problems, right? You don't fall apart in public. And so people don't necessarily check in on you. No one checks in on the steady one. No one worries about the strong one, quote unquote, right? And that's honestly part of the role. And as bad as that sounds, right? Competence gets mistaken for invulnerability. And this is where leaders, I guess, could get a little bitter or, butthurt. And you might think, well, damn, nobody cares about me. But in reality, people are also busy. They have everything going on that you have going on in their own version. People are in their own heads, right? People assume you've got it because of the position that you're in, right? Because what you've achieved. So you have 2 options, right? Option A, stay mad, stay hurt, stay whatever, right? That's your option number 1, option A. Option B is try to build a support team, a system, or try to build support on purpose, right? Try to get into a room of like-minded people. Try to get other people in the same lane as you. But you have to pick option A or option B, right? Because otherwise, the dangerous lie essentially is, I guess the dangerous lie, that really kills leaders, right? Something must be wrong with me. And no, nothing is wrong with you. Nothing at all. Loneliness at the top is structural. If you carry outcomes, you carry isolation risk. If you ignore that, you drift into one of the three quote unquote bad places, right? Either burnout, resentment, or emotional shutdown. When leaders shut down, they get sharp in a bad way, right? Short temper, no patience, no warmth, to say, or vibe, right? No joy in what they're doing anymore. Then they tell themselves they're just busy, right? It's all good. I'm just busy. No, you're overloaded, you're unsupported, and that's a difference. But what is the difference between isolation and loneliness, right? I guess because a lot of people think isolation, loneliness, the same thing. It's not, right? Loneliness equals fewer peers. Isolation equals zero anchors. Loneliness is normal. Isolation is dangerous and a choice, right? Loneliness is something of the lines of saying like, I'm carrying more than most people. Isolation is I have nobody I can be real with. See the difference there? And if that's you, don't romanticize it. Don't call it independence. It's a liability. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will be, right? Because when the pressure hits you, it will crack. And you'll crack it in public, in private, doesn't matter. Like you will start to leak, and your short temper, all that kind of stuff, all the negative side effects, of your personality trait will come out in public, and that's not a healthy place nor a great place to be either, because you're going to start feeling even more lonely and more isolated. So neither is good. But so again, like loneliness is just part of the job. Isolation, though, again, is your choice. So if you are isolated or feel isolated, that again, you have the choice to solve that problem right now. And then rule number 4, you don't need many people. You just need the right ones. Again, you don't need many people in your circle. You just need the right ones in your circle. And here's what the right ones, should look like to you. They're not impressed by you, right? I'll say that again. They're not impressed by you. They're not scared of you. They do not want anything from you. They don't want to compete with you, but they will tell you the truth. You need 1 or 2 of those in your circle or in your life. That's it. Not 10, not 20, not 100, right? And if you're thinking, but where do I find them? You can build the room, or you can go to a room full of them, a mastermind, a coaching network. Maybe your industry has a group that, for you guys, for owners or operators, right? People who also carry the weight that you're carrying, because the weight isn't light. The weight is not fun every day. Everyone wants the title until the title demands the work, right? There's that saying, everyone wants to be a soldier until there's a war, right? Everyone wants to be a warrior until there's a war, right? But this is what comes with that, right? You don't find those people at random. And so you have to, if you don't find them where you're at, you need to start choosing better rooms, right? And so here's how you could essentially manage the curve in a healthy way, manage the system in a healthy way. But you have 3 buckets, right? Bucket 1 essentially is your peers, 1 or 2 people at your level. Bucket 2 is a mentor, right? At least one mentor, someone ahead of you on your journey. And bucket 3 essentially is an outlet, right? A place where you can process, and kind of just turn your mind off, that doesn't necessarily damage your team or, in front of everyone, that for me personally, like when I go to the gym, maybe it's not even I work out in my own gym. Sometimes I go to a different gym. Like that's just in my outlet, right? Where I can think about things, maybe I'll even go on a run. That's one of my other outlets. I don't like running, but I will use that as an outlet. But that's it, right? A peer, a mentor, and an outlet, those 3 buckets. And there's your system right there. If you can build those 3, you can carry a lot more weight, like without it feeling unbearable. If you don't, though, leadership will feel like you're suffocating. So let's make it measurable for you. This week, if you feel like this, I want you to pick one peer and put them on a list. Like put it in your notes on your phone. Find a mentor if you don't have one, right? Reach out, book a time. And then third one is, your outlet, right? What is it? Schedule it, put it on your calendar, right? So that it's actually an appointment that you treat for yourself. And so the other part, I guess, I want to dive into is like the solitude, right? The solitude isn't punishment, it's a tool. But if you only use it right. And so here's what like solitude will do for you, right? It removes noise. It removes opinions. It removes other people's fear from your head so you can think, so you can decide, and so you can lead with more clarity. But solitude also has a dark side. If you use solitude to avoid people, that starts to become isolation. If you use solitude to reset and sharpen, now that becomes a healthy leadership style. So to be honest, are you using alone time to get better or to disappear? Think about that. And then rule 5, schedule thinking time. Like you schedule time to do anything else, right? Schedule time for just you. Let your, decisions and everything start to just settle. Let your thoughts and everything settle. Have a thought window where you can like, look, these are the issues of the day. How are we going to solve it? Who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to reach out to? And so forth. Instead of just reacting all day long as things come, right? Because you're just reacting on the fly. It starts to create sloppy leadership, right? So a kind of a clean rule for you is 2 blocks per week, 30 minutes each, no phone, no noise, just you, a piece of paper or a notebook, and ask yourself 3 questions. What problem am I avoiding? What decision is overdue? And what standard has slipped? Answer them and then act. Don't answer them and then think about it. You just thought about it. Answer them, then act. That is leadership. So ask yourself those 3 questions and be truthful to yourself. Like you'll know if you're lying to yourself, right? But lying to yourself does you no good because again, you're not going to create the solutions or reach out to the people you need to reach out to. Your emotional discipline though is going to have to change with becoming a leader, right? Leadership is carrying weight without dumping it on other people. I'm not saying delegate. I'm saying the weight of your choices, the weight of your decisions. So you still feel stressed. You still feel doubt. You're not a machine, but you manage it, right? You're not going to spray it on, spray it down below on your team. You don't make you don't make your emotions everyone else's job. You need to process it in the right places, right? Again, your 3 buckets, your peer, mentor, and outlet, not your team, not your spouse. And please don't act as your spouse as your therapist, because that is not going to be a healthy relationship either, right? Not your friends who can't handle it, right? Be smart of who you tell your pressures and give the weight to, because at the same time, if you give it to the wrong person, it's also going to have a negative effect on you because you're going to immediately go back to the place of no one understands me. And all of a sudden you start feeling isolated again. So if you drop your weight on others that you're not meant to, and they drop it in their performance, again, it's still a loss for you, right? But the upside, here's the trade for that, right? You do lose some relatability, but you do gain impact, right? And again, that's leadership. You can have comfort or you can have influence. You got to pick. Most people do want both, and that's why they stay stuck at their current position. Leadership means that you accept the trade. You stop whining about it. Yes, lonely sometimes, but so what? That's the job. That's the title. So let's close this clean, wrap it up with a bow. If leadership feels lonely, it might mean you're doing it right. But don't use it as an excuse to isolate So I want to give you a little assignment. Only 3 steps, right? Step 1, I want you to identify one peer that you can be real with, right? Text them today, set a call. Step 2, identify one outlet that doesn't damage your business and just lets you essentially have a thought time, have some thoughts to yourself, right? You can work out, journaling, therapy, coaching, go on a hike, whatever the case may be. Pick one, put it in your calendar, schedule it. And then step 3 is stop expecting emotional support from people who rely on you. Remember, they rely on you. They don't need to know that you're worried. Your job is just to make sure that they're not worried. The expectation creates disappointment in them because they're looking to you to lead. Disappointment creates resentment, and resentment makes you a worse leader, or at least have less of an impact. So cut it. Listen, leadership doesn't just raise your impact, it will shrink your circle. I promise. That's not a problem though. That's just the reality. So you have to build your system to carry the weight so you can keep leading. I just want to say, guys, I appreciate you guys. I love y'all. I'll see you guys on the next one. If you guys have any questions or anything, you can always reach me, shoot me a DM. Until next time, guys.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. 'Cause in the game of life, mindset calls the shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to